Ladies and gentlemen, hold tight because today's guest isn't just another freight tech innovator. We've got a full blown industry icon in the house. In the past, we've had icons that have been around 5, 10 years. This is an icon that's been around pretty much as long as I've been around. Uh, what's that saying something? He's the man who kicked down the doors of the old school logistics world, looked at static freight rates and said, "Yeah, I can fix that." From bartending nights to funding his early ventures to pioneering API driven freight connectivity back when trucking execs thought API meant another pricing issue. This guy wrote the playbook on innovation. He's built companies, earned patents, and challenged the status quo at every turn. But when he's not redefining logistics or schooling the industry on dynamic pricing, you'll find him jamming out with a harmonica, lighting up stages, and keeping crowds on their feet. I should know. He does a mean piano man, right, Charlie DeHoney? And did we mention sailing? Riding winds and waves with a swagger that'll make Captain Jack Sparrow proud. He's the CEO of Facts, a founder of Banyan Technologies, the godfather, love that word, and this is so true, the godfather of freight APIs. I've only given two people the godfather title. Godfather of freight APIs, a sailing enthusiast, a harmonica virtuoso, and frankly, one of the coolest dudes you'll ever meet in logistics. So, ladies and gents, give it up for the one, the only, Lance Healy. Lance, welcome to Driving Forward.
Wow. Thanks, Nick. That's quite an intro. I gotta say, that's pretty fantastic. But thank you. I'm honored to be here and have the audience with the mayor, the legend himself. So thank you, sir. Yeah.
Appreciate it. It's great having you on the show. And
yeah.
With any guest, I mean, you and I had a really great conversation. At this point, it seems like the years just blinked by. But 5 months ago or so at Manifest, and I sort of cataloged that, and then I did some research on you furthermore, and it's like you do, any way that you roll this back, you've had a heck of a career, and you set the baseline for many things that we do today in a lot of the spaces. So yeah, I think that everything that I just said carries. So otherwise,
thank
I wouldn't.
You very much. So. No, I appreciate that, and I think it's ironic. I just heard you were on episode 91. Congratulations for that.
Thanks.
I actually graduated high school in 91. So like it's serendipitous. So yeah.
Well, we're not too far off from each other. So I'm right in that range. So
excellent.
So yeah, which a long time ago, we probably had the same experiences because you jumped right into logistics pretty early on too. But I used to be the youngest guy in all the meetings, and I'd absolutely be the youngest guy in all the meetings. And everybody would look at me and go, "What are you doing in here?" And I would ask silly questions, that didn't. I remember the first time I asked a question like, "What's a GL?" I was probably like 24. I wasn't an accountant. I didn't know. I was an ops guy, and maybe I was even younger than that. And so then I had to go study and learn accounting because I didn't know what a general ledger was. And 2 years later, I was toe to toe with any controller. So, but I had to ask those questions, and you bootstrap your way up through it. So
that's how you learn is looking stupid sometimes and not intentionally.
I do that really well.
It's kind of a gift for me. So I can default.
So I have no problem doing that. So if you're not afraid to look stupid, the world is your oyster.
Absolutely.
You can jump out there and there's nothing wrong. You can do anything if you're not afraid to look stupid and have some confidence.
No, makes it safe for other people to ask questions too. So,
Right.
right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's
All
good.
right. So let's go
Cool.
back a ways. Where'd
All
you
right.
grow up and what
Yeah.
was life like as a kid? What was
Um,
young Lance into?
grew up in Findlay, Ohio. It's like an hour south of Toledo and kind of farm country. I have a pig trophy. Um, uh, my dad was in insurance.
So
Mom
you
was at
raised
home.
pigs or
No, it was a grease pig contest. It's what we do for fun out there. But
fair enough.
anyway, but um, yeah, just was an exchange student in Belgium, junior year of
Oh,
high school. I was the only kid that applied for the Rotary Exchange Scholarship, and I wasn't even a good student, but I was the only one applied, so I won. So spent a year in Belgium, learned French fluently, came back. I had to make up 2 years of high school at once to graduate with my friends. And then went to Ohio University and was African Studies and French major. Ran the Entrepreneurs Club. Wasn't in the College of Business because I didn't like they were just teaching corporate fodder, not entrepreneurship.
right.
Um, Ran about six or seven companies, depending on which ones I want to talk about. While in college, we as a group made about 10 grand a quarter, um, and played water polo in college, high school and college. Did the ROTC Ranger Candidate course at OU with some buddies. I have hollow bones in my legs, so I can't jump out of airplanes or run. So that's why I
We're
got.
learning a lot about Lance
I
here. So
mean, more than you needed, but
hollow
so
bones like a bird. So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
fair.
So cycling and water polo is kind of what I did for fun. Um, and yeah, graduated college and was going to go to Thunderbird for international business, but I was just had this entrepreneur itch, and I was like, well, I have nothing but like a POS Honda Civic right now.
Yeah.
Um, so if I lose everything, like I'm kind of right where I started.
Sure.
So
Good time
uh,
to throw a ball. Yeah.
yeah, so bartended nights and weekends. Met my wife; she was my boss. Still is. Titles changed, but
Yep.
whatever.
Yep.
And then got into construction materials out of Norway and Iceland. Imported them in, and then set up manufacturing in Vancouver, Canada at 23. Um, and then my supplier had a cocaine problem. He partied all of my money away. I licensed everything, lock, stock, and barrel, to a big PVC component manufacturer that was interested in the business, and then teamed up with one of my vendors, Jim Walborn, and that was like 98, 99. And then this interweb thing came out. We said, hey, what if we brokered construction materials online anonymously?
Sure.
And we're like, cool. And then we figured out we had to coordinate all the freight. And we're like, wow, this sucks. Oh, this is horrible. So I'm inherently lazy. So I said, how can we do this better? And it was heavy in LTL. So um, everybody was loading tables and at the time, and I was like, well, why can't we just go get the rates directly from the carriers? And so we built some tools to go out and do that. And then a bunch of our vendors and customers were like, how'd you do that? I was like, oh, we just built this little app. And they were like, could we use that? And I was like, sure. They're like, we should charge for this. And and that's how Banyan Technology got started, and how I officially got into freight um, as an application. And that was in 99, 2001. Um, and and then like 5 years later, somebody called us a SaaS model, and I had no idea what that meant. And so,
Right.
so
Right. Uh,
yeah,
yeah. These are so this got edgy with me because when I start thinking back, like I don't think of APIs. So being a trucker, so I
yeah,
got into the industry about that time, and being a trucker, I don't think of APIs in the late '90s.
No.
So I actually just Googled this because I didn't check when, but API has been a term that's been around since the 60s.
60s. Yeah. Yeah.
So I knew it. So I checked it earlier, and it's
Mhm.
definitely been around a long time. But I just checked it now because I had forgotten. But yeah,
Yeah.
1960s is how
Yeah.
long API has been around, which
Yeah.
is wild because I don't really think of it coming around in the industry until 2005, 2006 is
Mhm.
when it started becoming relatively adopted. But really, 2010 is when it became a household term in logistics. So,
Yeah.
um,
I
yeah,
was a lot of breaking rocks in the hot sun,
yeah,
trying to get people like, what do I need an API for? I have a disk. I was like,
yeah,
right. Never.
standardized. We have EDI.
Yeah.
So,
No,
what
we're
do you need?
good.
Yeah,
We're good. We're good. Yeah. Yeah.
we're going to
That's,
consume flat files. So,
yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting. It's hard to bring technology, especially new kind of when there's such an infrastructure around EDI or loading tables or whatever it is that the industry tends to support, maybe not an ideal process with a lot of technology. And when you try to break that, even though you're replacing a bad process, all the infrastructure that's there to support it is you got to break through. So there were no TMS systems that could support an API
right.
because they
No,
didn't exist. So it's chicken and egg, and yeah, so it's that long roll to get adoption, and convince people that, hey, this is going to change for the better, and there's a lot of things that are benefits there. Now it's like, well, yeah, of course there's API,
yeah.
of course,
We have
yeah,
products now that are built solely around their API sets. So,
yeah,
they're
yeah,
coming forward with it. Yeah, but
yeah.
that once again, I don't think you probably had mainstream APIs on the TMSs until maybe a few of them came forward, but on the small market side, prior to 2010.
Yeah, no, it was brutal. But that's okay. That's all right. It's everything builds on top of something else. And so it's
Right.
really cool to see how APIs are being used now in the industry, what they're doing, and then, dynamic pricing. And now people, shun the idea. And now they're like, this is awesome. And I'm like, yeah, I know. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, but no, it's really fun to see it evolve. Hey, what's up, Zach? That's
Um,
fantastic.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, it's definitely so. You're probably the farthest that anyone goes back talking about APIs, especially for logistics. So that's definitely a title that runs. Um, so you earned but talking about pricing, you earned a patent in dynamic pricing. Is that correct?
yeah, we got back in 2017, 2018. I think we uh, had this idea. Well, the idea started in 2012 because once you stripped out, what's up, Eddie? Once you stripped out the idea that you had to use an average rate base, like a czar,
Right.
whoever, that was created to, because there was no efficient way to get each carrier's rates in real time. So they kind of artificially recreated that. Um, but you sacrificed a carrier specific pricing by using czar. So you really missed out on carrier strengths where they had the best service areas and stuff because it didn't show up in the pricing. So being able to see that was great. And then the next evolution on that was, well, why can't carriers be able to adjust their pricing because their networks are constantly changing?
Right.
So to mitigate risk, having the ability for carriers to say, "Oh, hey, I'm 1,200 pounds shy on this direct point instead of doing a break bulk. I could use APIs to attract more freight to these terminal areas and make every shipment on that truck more profitable because now I don't have to do a break bulk to fill it. I could fill it on a direct line." So looking at those types of things where it wasn't about chasing the shiny quarter,
Right.
business wise. It's about optimizing networks. And so I was really excited about, what that could do for the industry, because shippers and 3PLs benefited, if on kind of spot discounts where the carriers needed it. And likewise, blizzard hits, a terminal floods, whatever it may be, you could de-emphasize a certain areas just as
Area.
easily. Yeah.
Sure. Sure.
So yeah, it wasn't everybody kind of jumped to the conclusion, oh, it's a race to the bottom, or this is going to be like a public auction. Absolutely not. It's on how you use it and how you deploy it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be scary or doomsday, but that's anytime there's new tech, new innovation, you tend to see that. Yeah.
Right. Well, sometimes it ends up being that race, not necessarily a race to a bottom, but our industry has a tendency of having a cost control. We save money and then we get competitive, so we reduce cost.
Yeah.
It
Right.
doesn't make sense, right? But if you're
Right.
operating at 100%, or so your revenue is 100%, your just because I'm going to use this number, but your costs are 95%, and
Mhm.
then you're able to reduce your costs to 93%. Well, then 100% of your revenue goes to 97%. So which is now the new 100%
Yeah.
because we get competitive, and then we all complain about that. But it becomes it actually it's cyclical because the industry adopts all the same technologies. So
Yeah.
when we use fuel optimization, once the industry hits
Hmm.
40, 50%, 60% saturation, now all the costs have been reduced from that fuel optimization or whatever
Yeah.
sort of technology that's out there, and everybody sort of reduce the cost. Therefore, the rates come down, and it's sort of a cyclical thing that we all
Yeah.
love to do. But I mean, when
It's
we're
true.
still running around at the same rates we were running around at when I was running trucks, and I haven't been running trucks in a long time. So,
Yeah,
um,
that's it. That is it exactly. So yeah. And it continues, but that's where, I mean, you and you've seen over the span of a few decades, seen, the value propositions. I think it's most prevalent in 3PLs, how they constantly have to keep innovating and
right,
constantly have to keep recreating themselves to add more value. Um, I remember when it used to be, well, if you wanted multiple rates, well, you had to go to a 3PL, or,
right.
set up some major ERP system. And then, all that's just been evolving, evolving, evolving. So the
Now it's
good
a
news,
click of a button away. So,
yeah, yeah. But I think it's made the whole industry more efficient. Usually the 3PLs will adopt it, and then eventually that trickles into the shippers, um, and the carriers, at least in the LTO community. Very few carriers want to be first, and no carrier wants to be last. Um, but it's all kind of like, well, okay, well, if all these guys are doing it, then we'll do it. Then we'll have to do it, or that kind of thing. So yeah, it's been interesting to uh, see it evolve just over time. It doesn't disappoint.
absolutely. So, we'll wrap as we'll take the next 5 minutes and kind of wrap up the
Yeah,
banyan period of your
sure.
career. Come back in and talk about what we've been. Actually, we got a bunch of comments that just rolled in, I think. So, mm, no, I guess we were commenting on other comments, so I'll leave that be. So after, so what would you say were the hardest moments running through that 20-year period or however long that was at Banyan?
Man,
Uh,
yeah. Yes, it was 20 years. Um, I think the biggest lessons I learned as young, and was pretty young in terms of entrepreneur, is I never went to grad school. So I always questioned myself on some decisions. Unfortunately, I had a great partner that did a lot of the back of the house stuff, and he was wonderful. But there was a lot of things that I didn't trust my gut as much as I should have. Um, and trusted, or put too much weight and emphasis on outside voices. whether it be investors or whatnot. And, to any entrepreneurs out there now, or if I could have shook myself when I was younger, is nobody knows your business as well as you do. That you and trust your gut, more than you think. Even if you don't know the reason why exactly, listen to people, but make your own decisions. And those are good. I mean, there were times we never missed a payroll for our employees, not once. My partner and I missed lots of them, and that's okay. Those are just decisions you make. So those are some lean times, but the makes you stronger, right?
Yeah.
But no, I just think there's so many lessons along the way. Just be open to learning them, and don't dig in.
Yeah.
Be open to learn on everything. That's let the market, let your customers, let your employees drive how you evolve. So
I think that's words of wisdom, and any founder, if you're not prepared to go through those scenarios, especially for a period of time, and it's not always the period of time you want it to be. Sometimes it comes out of nowhere. So I've started a number of businesses myself, and it's a real thing. So, but and you're absolutely right. The first business I started didn't make it, and it was a substantial amount of. I mean, it was a decent size organization, trucking company, and it didn't make it. And one thing that I did learn coming out of it was, strong sales was important. And at that time, I was not a salesperson. So the next 15 years, I invested into teaching myself how to sell.
Nice.
And I'm still maybe not the best salesperson, but I am a relationship guy, and very much so a relationship guy. So much that I've been coined by other people as the mayor because of my
absolutely.
Which has powered our at least initially powered our sales. So but that also being said, you learn what not to do when you fail, and you don't repeat those errors. So
try not to. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic.
Well, I think this is a good time to take our quick break. When we come back, we're going to do a little bit something a little bit different. We'll cover a couple topics in the news, and we'll kick it back off with what you were up to for a little period of time, and then jump into the freight facts for which I'm having a tough time with the Fs. I said a bunch of Fs earlier, and they screwed me all up. Now I'm tongue. But freight facts for the remainder of the time. So
sounds cool, man.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to commercial. We'll be back in a minute. If you have any questions for Lance, queue them up, send them in, and we'll be back in a minute. If your fleet's downtime looks like chaos, you're missing out on GLCS. In the fast-paced world of trucking and logistics, time is everything. Meet GLCS, your expert partner in managed IT services. We integrate seamlessly with your team, bringing seasoned IT professionals with deep transportation and logistics expertise. Imagine your software updates running smoothly, complex issues resolved quickly, and operations humming with efficiency. GLCS has your back. Our support doesn't just fix problems, it prevents them. With our industry connections and proactive approach, we keep your trucks rolling and your brokers working. Think of us as the added resource your company needs to unleash its full potential. Visit glcs.net today and keep your business driving forward. GLCS, where efficiency meets expertise. And we're back. All right, so we'll kick this one off with I think Ben Wiesen from Carrier Logistics. They just released they had something coming out on a press release. So, but they released a new product that is AI powered tool to streamline their LTL apps. Effectively, it's a product that is taking bill of ladings and extracting data off of them and piping that data into CLI, which is their LTL TMS. So if you're a CLI customer, Ben and I were just texting back and forth today, and he asked me to repost this on LinkedIn, and I said, well, I'll just talk to. We're actually talking LTL today a little bit, so I figured we'll verify and send this out on the podcast today. So if you're a CLI customer and you're not aware of this, something that you probably want to check out, because anytime you can take that BOL and remove that manual labor. That's something that we're doing on the truckload side. It's something that we're looking at in a lot of different places, but bill of ladings on the LTL side are fairly high volume.
And
So,
complicated. And if Ben built it, it's going to be good. So
yeah, absolutely.
that's fantastic. Yeah.
So definitely check that one out. Couple of things in the news. We're gonna, like I said, we're gonna start doing these news segments, which we'll get rid of that. But mostly just calling out CDL life stuff here. But last week we were talking about fuel fraud, and that's we were out with MS Fuel Card, multi-service fuel card at the Trucker Jamboree, and we were talking about fraud in the industry in general, but that old school fraud was primarily around the cards, and the folks that were with us from MS Fuel Card said, it's actually still present, but it's mostly carriers that don't necessarily have a TMS, or don't have an advanced TMS. So if you have an advanced TMS, you're probably locking down that card based upon some sort of operational detail, or you have some sort of geofence requirement that's happening due to the order, et cetera, et cetera. And but it's still very much so happening. So this just popped up that a trucking company employee is arrested for $15,000 in fraudulent fuel purchases. And if you actually go into the article, it says that most of these fuel purchases were actually on their personal vehicle. So, just to support what we were talking about last week, this is still happening. And fairly, $15,000 in personal vehicles is quite a bit of personal vehicle fuel. If you figure, my truck takes $100 in gas, so on a full tank, and so that's a lot of fuel. So then the last one that kind of caught my eye is this $15.6 million meth seizure from a truck and trailer hauling carrots on the Far Bridge in Texas, coming out of Mexico, coming into Texas. But 1,700 pounds of meth. Can you imagine that, Lance?
Wow. That's more than a weekend. Yeah.
that's definitely more than a weekend. So that's 1,700 pounds of meth in with carrots too. So you have to wonder, I really wonder how this was distributed throughout the trailer. If it was like one, there's a lot of little bricks there, but how that was done. And there's actually, the article says that there was 3 other seizures similar to this recently. So, but yeah, but $15.6 million seizure. So big time stuff.
It's crazy.
So our guys on the border are still doing their job, but that's a freaking pallet of meth. Talk about LTL shipment. I wonder what the cost on that if you put it through Zarlight.
Yeah. I'm not sure what class that would be, but
that's what I was just gonna say. Yeah, what sort of class is that? So, I'm not sure. So, well,
Uh,
we'll see.
that's like, yeah.
All right. So back to our line of questioning.
Mhm.
So after 20 years or 2 decades at Banyan,
Yeah.
you kind of transitioned to a couple other companies, and how how did that feel going from startup and founder to more of an innovator within other organizations?
Yeah. So I got my first job, which at the time I think I was 48 when I left Banyan, and I thought, hey, this could be fun. This could be exciting. It's an established company, looking at growing some LTL tech, and um, Nate, it turns out I'm a pretty lousy employee. So,
Yeah,
the I just the to the company was fantastic. Worked with the folks at Optum. They have some amazing
yeah,
technology.
they've been on this
Um,
too. Yeah,
oh, good, yeah, and really, big fans of theirs. It wasn't a fit for me.
yeah,
But still big fans of theirs. But and the idea, having the ability to take the dynamic pricing tools and then take their network optimization tools, be able to put them together and then create an asset neutral optimization. So essentially, a 3PL could create their own virtual LTL network, because 3PLs are great at covering truckloads, so you just need local P&D. And looking at trying to develop some tools around that. Other priorities and things persisted, and it was like, you know what, I'm going to go start my own thing again. And and that's really where connected with Pat Martin and Mark Meskin, and we
yeah.
created Freight Facts, and that's been a hoot. Um, I- Working on it for a couple of years, and um, essentially we're creating a scorecard on the shippers from aggregating data from LTL carriers. So this is and people's like, oh, okay, you're scoring the carriers. I'm like, no, we're scoring the shippers,
Right.
the manufacturers, distributors. They're like, oh, so a lot of most people liken it to a credit score. So you can't go into a bank and get a loan without them checking your credit score, right? Why should LTL carriers provide freight pricing without checking your freight score? It's a data driven history of your operational performance. Um, so this is how you get judged, and it's a 900-point scale, not dissimilar to a credit score.
Yeah.
But there's about 25 factors, and things like dwell time and days to pay, and all those things. Every LTL carrier wished they knew about a customer before they did business with them, but then they end up learning along the way, and over 90, 120 days, then have a pricing action. And all of that process is very time consuming and very expensive.
Right.
um, Learning by experience. So it's not an effective way. Banks came together and said, we used to learn by experience too. This is a bad idea.
Yeah.
FICO scores, also landmines, clearing a landmine field, not good. Learning by experience. Or you
Right.
could buy a map for $20. You know, uh, that kind of thing. So that's the crux of what we've been putting together. And so we just launched with a founding group of 3PLs. We've got a founding group of shippers that are going to come in later in the summer. And then we're looking to go live, towards the end of Q2 or Q1, um, to the open market. But yeah, that's our stick. We thought we were going to get a lot of pushback from the shippers, because who likes to be accountable? I know I really don't,
Right.
especially when it's like garbage night. But they're able to get a a view and a vision of not just their facilities. And shippers forget, like in the eyes of the LTL carriers, you're only half of every transaction. You know, you're 50% of, so they can have the best docks, the best operations in the world, but it's their vendors and their customers that are really the full body that's impacting their relationships with their carriers. And they don't have any way to do that.
I think in a lot of cases, the good actors, the good customers that are out there want to know where they're weak.
Exactly.
And if no one gives them the data, then how can they resolve? They're not monetized to figure that out.
No.
You're just going to deal with it. If you're just going to deal with the problem as the carrier, which we've always dealt with.
Exactly.
Historically, we always just deal with the problem.
Tolerate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because we don't want to upset our customer, we just deal with the problem. And, that's been transportation for our entire careers, if not longer.
Yeah.
Just fight through it, grind through it, and do whatever. But now, if you can give a data-driven report, data-driven facts,
Yeah.
freight facts, you can give those freight facts back to that customer, that shipper, and they want to take action. If they don't want to take action, there's nothing you're going to do about that either, other than not do business with them, which is something I tell every customer, every partner that I talk, every person I know that comes up and starts complaining to me about a broker, a customer, a whomever that they don't like doing business with. My first answer to them is very simple. You don't have to do business with people. It's
Right.
that simple.
Right.
You don't have to. There's no one forcing you to do business with XYZ customer at all. You never have to do business with them. You can go something else.
Yeah. And it's Bob Newhart. This one's for Eddie Meadows. Stop it. Just stop it. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's it. And we've seen where, shippers are looking at, hey, if you want to be one of my vendors and you're below a certain score, I want to kick you off my blankets, and you're on your own for the freight cost to me. I'll give you an allowance, but it's you are driving all of my negotiating power with my carriers down because of your bad dock performance. But now we can track that and see performance improvements and really empower shippers to do that. And likewise, for the 3PLs, they've got a whole new set of tools. They can start coaching their shippers and saying, hey, you suck, here's why, but here's how you get better.
Right.
And help them evolve and be that better network of choice.
So are you using this as, most of these 3PLs have this data, or did they have this data previously? They typically do, right?
No.
I know the carriers in many cases are looking at it, but it's not back to the 3PL.
Not in its entirety. So the 3PL can get some of that data, but really we're looking at saying, like, let's do this on purpose with the things that are universally vexing to the entire industry. And so this is not competitive data. There's not this fallacy of some carriers we've heard of, well, my data is so much better than everyone else's. I'm like, do you calculate your dwell time in minutes? Yes? Okay. It's the same. It's data is data, and we're not looking at competitive stuff. We're not looking at zero pricing data, zero, that kind of thing. But these are things that a lot of carriers are already collaborating on with, like Shiplify, great tool. The industry benefits as a whole because of what they've been able to build. My carrier, tons of collaboration on that the carriers derive value from, right? And that's much more sensitive data and pricing and all that kind of stuff. But so ours is pretty innocuous when you compare it to some of those things. But everybody accepts and adopts innovation at different points. It's kind of like if you got kids getting their driver's license, one's like 15 and a half, I'm on it. The other one's like, I'll be there at 18. Right. And there's just different comfort levels, and that's totally okay. Some people have to percolate it, with it for a while, and really get to understand it. So we're going through that right now. We got a few carriers that are like, no, we're going to lose all of our competitive advantage, and it's like, your competitive advantage isn't in a bad process. It's your service. It's your relationships. It's this. So,
Well, and if this comes out and is data that everyone's going to have, then you've lost it already. So
yeah, you can.
if this is your competitive advantage, it's gone. So
Yeah, it's definitely, it's not, but it's just, it's going to take
right.
people some time to get comfortable with it. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I hear you loud and clear. I've had those conversations in other areas as well, where systemically these are the way that people look at advantages, and the efficiency level with fleets and brokerages and 3PLs have come up so high in the last 5 years that those systemic advantages have gone away. I mean, people are very efficient, and now with AI, they're even more efficient. And you have the ability to move so fast.
Yeah.
So that's just gone.
Yeah, and it'll just be the detractors that don't participate, where everyone else is getting the intel, and they're not. That will The laggards will come in and just be like, oh yeah, we got to get this too.
Right. Or you're lost and you're done for. So
yeah.
So how do you hope that FreightFax will change relationships between? I mean, we kind of talked about this, but we've sort of danced around it. How do you hope that it'll change relationships between shippers, carriers, and 3PLs?
Honestly, it's transparency, and I don't think by and large, there may be a few nefarious actors out there, but by and large, shippers just don't have the infrastructure to capture the kind of data that the carriers need, or the 3PLs need to get them the appropriate pricing. So we end up, throwing a blindfold on, throwing a dart, and then we find out later, oh, you ship used tires in plate glass? Oh, I'm sorry. That's great. Those types of things, but not that extreme, but just little things that now we can have a very upfront conversation and very transparent conversation. Say, hey, here's where these warts are, and we know where they are now. Let's fix them, and then we can talk about better pricing, right? Or there's incentives, but overall, we as a group at FreightFax, we really want to see like at least a 3 OR point improvement for folks that are using us in the LTL industry. We want to make that kind of an impact. And we think we can. The carriers all looking at the same, 25 factors. Again, it's not the end all, but it's a huge starting point to saying how we could do this. When you couple that with dynamic pricing, for those carriers that have now or are using dynamic pricing initiatives now or plan to, now it's not only am I qualifying weight class and zip code to meet those terminal, needs, but I can also now qualify who am I going to get in and out of the dock fastest. That's who I want to give a spot discount to, not the guy that's going to hold me up for 60 minutes.
Right.
Yeah. So there's a lot of opportunities there. Some RFP tools. So this is like I call the landmine report. Jenny's going to work on rebranding that for me. But the if you have 1,000 addresses and you're able to download those and then push them through a system, and we can give you a location scoring every single one of those addresses, I don't have to look through 1,000. I just need to look at the 30 low scoring ones.
Right.
And so, boom, immediately I'm going. My processing time for an RFP is so much more effective.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we've talked about sort of how this impacts immediately. So once you start rolling out FreightFax to the open market, how it impacts, but taking that transparency beyond phase one, how do you think it'll look like 5 years down the road to the next evolution?
Yeah, I think, and my hope certainly is that in 3 years' time, the idea is laughable that you went out to go get freight pricing without sharing your freight score. You remember when we used to do that? When we used to be like, trust me, give me pricing. I'm great.
Yeah.
That it gets into that type of a lexicon over the next 3 years that it's like, well, of course, if I'm doing vendor qualification as a shipper, yeah, what's your freight score? How are you affecting my pricing? As a 3PL, we would love to do business with you and respond to your RFP. I need your freight score. Where I see it evolving is really, yeah, obviously I'm an API guy. So for me, it's not about coming to our UI. It's about getting that information to the systems where it needs to be. I've already had inquiries from like insurance applications, finance applications, because we've got data on how those locations perform that are interesting to them as well. So TMSs want to get it integrated. So as you're building the shipment, you can kind of see some of that data. I think there's a lot of uses that are going to happen with it that I haven't even thought about, and I love that. Take it and run with it. We're just going to focus on the stores. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's great. So what else do we need to know about freight facts before I go on to the next and final topic?
Yeah, no, I think we're working, we're filling out. We've got our founding 3PLs, but if there are folks interested, happy to engage and talk about when it'll be available. We still have a couple spots left in our founding shippers group, and if any carriers have questions about it, reach out to me directly. Walk you through, give you a demo, show you anything we can. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get contact information when we wrap up too, and I'll make sure to put it out on the comments. So
it's perfect. Appreciate it.
So wrapping up freight talk, I got to go into. So you're known as the harmonica man of logistics. How did that start?
Yeah. So fun fact is, I'm actually, my first instrument, I'm a drummer. So okay. I'm a drummer in a couple different, well, I'm in 3 different bands here in Cleveland. One, we just play like once, twice a year. But I've been with a band for about 16 years, playing around Cleveland and the dive bar circuit. Love it. That's called Cloud9. And when my son was born, I was like, hey, I need another instrument that I could play that I don't actually need it, very little talent, and don't have to actually read music for. And so I was like, harmonica. So I just started playing in the car driving to work so I didn't offend anybody. And then you find like a little chord that sounded good. Then you try to recreate it. And then just started playing. And I was in an investor presentation one time with Banyan, and he goes, "What are you going to do if we don't say yes and give you the money? What's your plan?" And I literally pulled out my harmonica, just started wailing a little bit. And the guy's like, "Okay, you got it. All right, that's fine." I was like, yeah, this is just a fun thing to do. But yeah, no, it took him over, did some work in Africa with the State Department as a translator in 2010, and that was fun diplomacy, just playing with some folks over there. And yeah, usually with enough liquid lubrication.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the next time it happens and there's something done where we align on karaoke and you pull that thing out, there was some recordings of it, but there wasn't the recording of it that we needed to get. And I've asked around, so if anybody has recording, Mahoney and I singing Piano Man,
it was excellent.
That needed to be. I don't know if it was excellent, but it was okay-ish. So it wasn't horrible. So, but it was good times, and you playing the harmonica was excellent. So.
Easy daisy. But glad to contribute. It won't be my voice.
Yeah, fair enough. But it was still great. And then the final topic is you have a love for sailing. So you want to touch on that a little bit. I remember that is a topic for whatever reason. We both love boats, but I love boats that take gas. You like boats that take air. So
Free
we're talking
energy.
about that a
Yeah.
little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up. My dad was just kind of a cruiser, and sailed around Lake Erie, and then didn't really start racing until my son was in sail camp, and then had some buddies and got involved in racing. We race J22s primarily, and then my wife races, and now my daughter races. And we have a little sailboat out at our cottage, that we take and run about. But if anybody wants to do it, just go down to a yacht club marina, find out. Everybody's always looking for a crew, and there's usually a training boat. And don't be intimidated by it. It's a lot of people that really want to teach more people how to do it. So just, show up.
Excellent. So,
Awesome.
Lance, where can people find you? What's your socials, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, so I'm really just on LinkedIn. I don't really do Facebook or X at all. I promo my local Cleveland band. It's the only time I'm ever on Facebook. So
Fair enough.
not much there, but yeah, freightfacts.io is the website. And L Healy at freightfacts.io if you need to get in touch with me. But no, man, appreciate that conversation.
Perfect. Yeah, I do too. In the next, we're going to be lining up our 2026. Jenny and I are just wrapping up the 2026 plan for freight movement. We're going to do something in Cleveland.
Awesome.
You might have to bring out one of your bands.
All
So
right.
I'm feeling that. So we might at least have that discussion. So
I'll get you a discount. Yeah.
fair enough. Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
We want to make sure it's taken care of, but we'll have to consider that. I think there's plenty of people in Cleveland that'll come out too. So
For sure.
it should be a good one. But I definitely appreciate the time. It's been a great discussion. If you want to hang out for a minute, I do have a couple questions. If you got the time, a couple questions for you after that I'd chat with you about. So
cool, man.
All right. So we'll wrap one up and appreciate it.
Thanks, Nate.
All right. So did a little jive there. So this industry doesn't move forward because we play it safe. It moves forward because a few people, decide good enough isn't good enough. They challenge outdated systems, question everything, and build tools no one asked for, but everyone ends up needing. Whether it's APIs, new pricing models, sailing into headwinds, or jamming a harmonica at a freight conference, it's all the same spirit. It's all about pushing boundaries, betting on yourself, and doing the work, even when nobody's watching. That's what keeps this game alive. That's how we drive forward. So thanks for watching. Stay curious, stay informed, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Until next time, drive forward with purpose and innovation.